Well, we're now joined by retired Lieutenant General André Deschamps. He is the National President of the Royal Canadian Air Force Association. He was also a commander in the Royal Canadian Air Force from 2009 and 2012. He joins us now in Ottawa. General, thank you for joining us today.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
This is such a horrible tragedy, made even more tragic that this crash happened during what looked like a routine takeoff. I'm wondering what goes through your mind when you look at the video of the jet leaving the Kamloops runway?
Yeah, first off, I'd like to express our condolences and sympathies to Captain Casey's family for their tragic loss. And of course, we are hoping for a speedy recovery for Captain McDougall as he deals with this consequences of yesterday. The trip itself looked normal. The takeoff looked absolutely regular. The planes were in formation at the end of the runway. Landing gear was up. It looked normal. And as everybody noticed, by the time they got to the end of the runway, the pilot on the left side, Captain McDougall, executed a rapid climb, also known as a zoom maneuver, which is typically done when the pilot detects an abnormality in the aircraft or something going on that he requires to gain altitude rapidly to assess the situation.
So that, I guess, is the point where you as a pilot realize that something is amiss with this takeoff.
Yes, absolutely. It's not a normal maneuver, and it's drilled into the pilots that as soon as you have a serious problem, you get away from the ground, gain some altitude, buy yourself some time to assess the situation and make a decision whether you can stay with the airplane or you have to leave the airplane.
Does the fact that, when I look at that video, and I'm not a pilot, I have no expertise in this whatsoever, but when I looked at the video, I saw that steep ascent that you're describing, and then it quickly started to nosedive. Does that indicate to you a mechanical problem?
Well, I think, again, the cause of the accident, I think the fact that the pilot is still with us is great. They'll be able to, when they're able to talk to him, find out what happened. Why it happened will be another series of investigation. If it's a technical issue, they'll have to analyze whatever components they think could be at fault to make sure they understand the issues and then take corrective action if that's required. But at this point, I think it's fair to say that the pilot reacted quickly, gained as much altitude as he could. Don't forget they were at very low speed. They just got off the ground, so they don't have a lot of energy. They're just building energy at this point. So that's why you saw the airplane go up, but it didn't go up very high or for very long before it ran out of speed and therefore ran out of options.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, General, I'm wondering if you might tell us about the skill level, the training, the expertise that's actually required of a pilot who does become a snowbird.
It's a pretty rigorous selection process. The snowbirds typically will do a 3-year tour on the squadron. It can vary, but it's usually the standard. There's a call for volunteers. It's a volunteer posting because of the demands that we put on the pilots and their families. So people have to be motivated to do this, and then they have to be screened to make sure they meet the high standards of the squadron, and they can mesh with their teammates. It's very much a small unit, so it's absolutely team dynamics at play here. So people have to fit. So there's a rigorous screening process. If they're chosen and they pass the initial screening, and then they go into, usually in the fall, they start doing the training with the rest of the team. So they have to build up, because nobody flies the Tudor anymore as a normal line aircraft. It's only for the Snowbird. So there's a conversion to the airplane required. So there's a period of several months where the new pilot has to learn how to fly the airplane. So just get comfortable with the airplane, get comfortable with the way it performs aerobatics, and then you start building up from there, growing the number of formation players until you get to the full 9 snowbirds.
Is it safe to say then this is the best of the best that actually gets to become a snowbird?
These some are most highly skilled pilots in the Air Force.
So I wonder then, you mentioned the Tudor, and to my understanding you're talking about a plane that's nearly 60 years in age. Could the plane's age be a factor in what happened yesterday?
Again, it's too soon to tell. I think that's what the investigation will uncover very quickly, I would expect. The airplane has been in the training role since 1964. I flew the Tudor when I went through pilot training a few years ago. It's a very, very capable airplane, super reliable. It's very robust. Not a lot of extra bells and whistles, so it's designed for the training environment. It's also a very stable formation platform, and that's why it was the platform of choice when we stood up the Snowbirds in 1971. It is, pushing 60, and therefore there's an expectation that the platforms will be renewed at some point this decade.
Mm-hmm. And again, so tragic because not only were they not in formation, this was just a plane that was, to my understanding, going from Kamloops to Comox to get ready for its next demonstration to support people in the age of COVID-19. I wonder, General, what kind of impact does this tragedy have on the squadron and on the RCAF as a whole?
Well, as you can imagine, as I mentioned, it's a small unit. There's only about 80 or so people between the maintainers, administration, and the pilots. When they go on the road, there's a couple dozen folks between the pilots and their maintainers and the logistics folks. So it's a small team. And like all sports team, they have a very tight team dynamic. What happens to one happens to the entire team. So you can expect that this is having a deep impact on the team. But they're tough, resilient. 431 Squadron's gone through some of these challenging times before, and they've come through the other side as professionals, as they always do.
André Deschamps, I want to thank you for the time today.
My pleasure.